And we want to welcome Chris Hicks.
Alex once again.
And while we're waiting for Mr. Hicks to come, our next item of the agenda is the Executive Committee. And we only have one item, and it's very important. But as you know, it's normally facilitated. Oh, here he is. Thank you, sir. If you could state your name and who you represent and the item, non-voting item you'd like to address.
Okay, my name is Chris Hicks, and I represent Chris Hicks. So,
That's good.
all right, should I begin? And I have 5 minutes. I've been watching in the other room. I want to thank you. My name is Christopher Hicks. I live at 444 Woodward Court in Cincinnati, Ohio. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this non-voting item topic. Revitalization of the over 600 school boards in Ohio is essential this November and starts with voter information on current local school board members and on candidates for local school boards. The election is November 2nd, 2021, but the filing deadline is August 4th. 3 of 5 seats are up for election on almost every school board. There have been many issues in the last year, from COVID-19 response, remote learning, successes and failures, and more. In addition, the continued reliance on levies is making financial accountability more important than ever. That is why I, with the help of some others, have come up with a discrete 10-item list of points that will help every parent and citizen know how their school board members and candidates stand on important issues. The list is available at, I'm going to read this out, PUKITA2022.com education. It's PUKITA FORSENATE 2022.com/education. Senate candidate Mark PUKITA has graciously offered to host the list and information that can help anyone, regardless of their politics, who wishes to run for a local school board. I am a conservative, but this is as much about making it clear to voters where candidates for local school board races stand on a variety of issues that may come before them. Why am I here? I would like feedback on the points. They are referred to as a contract with the district for people who are currently on or running for local school boards. It is a 10-point document. As I noted, it and other items relating to how to run are located at PUKITA2022.com/education. I can also take personal feedback at chris@hickspub, HICKSPUB.com. And no, I don't own a pub. So chris@hickspub.com. I know you have a restriction on topics that can be discussed before your board, so I will refrain from disallowed topics and only read 8 of the 10 points. Here we go. This is the contract. I, insert name as a member or candidate for insert district name, school district school board in the election to be held November 2, 2021, commit to the following. I will support and fight for 1, academic excellence being the #1 measurement of district success, and the preservation of advanced and accelerated programs and in-person classroom instruction. 2, a fair, balanced, and accurate presentation of American history, which inspires good citizenship and patriotism based on the ideals of liberty, equality, and justice for all. 3, parents' rights to know and to consent to any counseling or treatment their child receives. 4, fiscal accountability and stewardship that quantifies results and is not based on simple comparisons to spending in other districts. The next part of the contract is I will oppose and fight against. These are the I will oppose and fight against points. Biological males participating in female sports are permitted in women's bathroom areas or vice versa. That was number 5. Number 6, comprehensive sexuality education, Planned Parenthood materials, transgender literature, and attempts to sexualize children through graphic, age-inappropriate presentations on human sexuality. 7, a culture of entitlement that normalizes an ever-expanding role for schools beyond an educational mission and beyond a safety net for those in need. And 8, adoption or acceptance of any federal or state programs that might co-opt any of these commitments. That is it. I left 2 points out because I know you disallow certain topics here. It will help people to know who currently or running for their local school boards supports those points. It is important for parents and citizens to know and can make 2021 a great year for voter information in advance of the November 2nd, 2021 election. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm glad to take questions. I told you I don't own a bar, but chris@hickspub.com. And PUKITA for Senate 2022/education, he volunteered to host resources that can help anybody, regardless of their political views, know how to run for their local school board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. We appreciate this sort of like a civics lesson, but I do need to say this is not a political forum as such, even though you're trying to educate us.
I think it's absolutely a political forum. You are elected people. I know some of you are appointed, and I don't appreciate the reference.
May I finish, sir? You were giving us some civic educational points. There's nothing wrong with that. All I'm saying is, and would suggest to you, is that a better forum may be the Ohio School Board Association. We are a local control state. I think what you're doing is admirable, but for this process, here again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board. I'm speaking in my position as the acting president. It's not appropriate at this time, but we appreciate it. As a matter of fact, you probably could get with the State of Social Studies Association, because you're educating people about civic engagement, and that is a priority in our country. So that's all I wanted to say, sir. Not to shut you down, but to help guide your process going forward.
May I briefly respond?
Yes, sir.
I think that stifling free expression and avoiding debates on ideas is wrong. Some things have happened here and across our state and our country that have heightened awareness of the importance of local boards. I think every forum is important, not just the state school board group or this group. Every forum that's involved with education in our state and our country is important. I didn't read 2 points to try to respect your rules. You have, to me, what are right now unconstitutional restrictions in public participation that is not content neutral and regards what is protected speech. So I appreciate your comments about what's an appropriate place or not, but I think every place is appropriate for Ohioans to come in and talk, to bring awareness to the fact that we are, and I appreciate it, a local control state, and how important it is that local school boards get people on them that support key ideas and push back against whatever bodies in the state try to take away that local control. But I appreciate your comments and thank you.
And Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
did I not allow you to make your presentation?
You did, but you belittled me right when I finished, and I
did
found
not
that to be
belittle
not,
you, sir.
not a positive thing to do.
No, please. If anything, I affirmed you, because I said it's civic education. I would never do that to you.
Well, you told me this wasn't an appropriate place.
It's more political. When I say appropriate, if you want to maximize your impact, there are other forums, and that's the reason.
Can I ask a question? With all respect, are there any questions for me?
Wait,
from anybody?
that's my role, sir.
Okay, all right.
Please respect it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All I wanted to do is clarify that I allowed you to make your public comments. Did I not?
And that it was this wasn't the appropriate place.
No, but
so thank you.
even before I said that, you made your comments, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there was not a shutdown of free speech in this forum.
Then can I read the 2 points that I didn't read?
No,
Because of
sir,
restricted
because
topics?
you chose not to. No, sir. Are there any questions of our guests We'll start with Mr. Hagan, then Ms. Johnson, and then Ms. Hill. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Your light may not-
I'm glad that I
Mr.
don't have to
Hicks.
touch this button.
Yeah, Mr. Hicks, first of all, I have to compliment you on your delivery. You don't need a microphone. That's a good thing when you're speaking to the public. Obviously, you needed the microphone here because it goes into the record, but you've got a good voice for speaking, so thank you for that. I appreciate what you're doing. I'd like to see people on all sides of every issue get out there and be vocal about where they're at. The thing that you're doing for across the state for school board races is excellent because oftentimes people have no idea who their school board members are. They know nothing about their beliefs. They often vote on a popularity contest, recognize a name,
Right.
all kinds of reasons that don't really fit the job. In our home district, we actually will have 4 on the ballot this fall, and the last man standing is my son Josh. He'll be the only board member carrying forward, other than some that may be reelected. The other person that was elected with him almost 2 years ago resigned the board after having life threats, et cetera, because some of the people weren't happy with some of the changes that were being made. But liked your points and appreciate your delivery, and I'm sorry that you're not able to give your complete comments because of rules, but we don't control all the rules as members. That's leadership. So thank you for coming, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan. Board Member Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and I want to thank you, Mr. Hicks, for being here today. I taught school for many years in Cleveland, and so I always, one of the things that was very important to me was the involvement of students and hearing the student voice. So do you have any thoughts on how students can have a larger role in being responsible for the kind of education they receive in your district?
In my district, personally, I think that so I live in the West Claremont School District in Claremont County. And personally, I think that adults, I'm going to give you a really good example. I'm very conservative, okay? At the school, at our high school, there's an LGBT club. And I've had people come to me saying, Chris, they think I'm very conservative. They think, Chris, what are we going to do about this? What could you do about this? And I'm like, they're high school, it's age appropriate. Kids should have clubs, okay? Kids can have clubs. So I think freedom of expression is an important thing. So I've never taken any bait on that kind of thing. And I remind parents that come to me that we all as parents need to make sure that kids have great options in their schools for clubs to participate in, for ways to get involved in things that are across the spectrum. And sometimes the parents that are the most vocal about, we need to shut down kids doing this in their high school, aren't doing anything to give opportunities to kids to participate in different activities in their high school that might be what those parents think are important for kids to be exposed to. I think it's really unfortunate. One of the points I mentioned was the kind of ever-expanding role of schools. And what that does is I've realized, I think one of the hardest jobs in America is being a teacher, because a lot of times they're dealing with all kind of societal issues that they had nothing to do with creating those issues. But I feel like some of the things take away the involvement of parents and the free expression of kids and them getting involved in different kind of clubs. So I appreciate your comments, but I think one of the most important things, when I was a kid in high school, I was in speech debate. I was in all these, I'll say, nerd things. I was big in nerd things. I was in the Dungeons and Dragons Club, okay? So, but those things are important for kids for their social formation and giving them all kinds of opportunity for expression in their schools. And I think that's an important thing for getting kids more involved. And they are kids. We're adults and they're kids still. And getting them more involved is to give them those opportunities to have broad, free expression.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Board Member Hill, and then Board Member Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks, for coming today. There was one item on your list that I wanted you to, and I think it was number 4. Could you expand on what that is a little bit?
Was it the fiscal accountability?
Yeah.
Okay. So it says fiscal accountability and stewardship that quantifies results. Obviously, I think I'm very conservative, but probably a lot of us would agree that there's issues with school funding in Ohio in how it's funding. Not necessarily the amount of the funding, but the structure of the funding and the approach to the funding. So I see increasingly in our district that retirees and people on fixed incomes are having increasing problems with being able to afford the tax burden of everything that gets put on property tax. You guys probably know this. I live in a township. The libraries, the senior services, the mental health, everything's part of property tax. And so I think fiscal accountability and stewardship needs to be high on any board member, that we have proper funding and proper use of funding. And it was a parenthetical part that I read, Ms. Hill, that said, and not based on simple comparisons to spendings in other districts. We had actually just had a presentation that I was in from our district, and a lot of the stuff, and we've all seen it, is how do we spend versus the comparative district? And I don't have anything against that. But that's not a measure. When I worked for IBM, that wasn't a measure of, how much does Dell spend or how much does HP spend? It was about the results I'm delivering. So I think that it said fiscal accountability and stewardship that quantifies results and is not based on simple comparison spendings in other districts. Are we getting, I think I have seniors that say, why should we have to pay for the schools? We're not having kids in the schools. And I say, because it's a societal interest that we have well-rounded, well-educated people. But society has an interest, not just in my superintendent saying, this is how much we spend versus another district, but my superintendent telling me, what is the product we're delivering? Is it a product that's going to make us proud, that's going to make me proud for the rest of my life, or is it a product that I have grave concerns with? And that's what I think the fiscal accountability and stewardship kind of ties back to those key points.
Yes, ma'am. Follow up.
Thank you, Chair McGuire. Beyond what's on the list, does the organization or whatever provide more stuff in this area for a potential board member to understand further?
So thank you for the question. I've been in touch with, when I said in my remarks, I and others, is I think there's a lot of interest, and there's people that have different capabilities and skills and focus. And one of the things I think is pretty exciting is I think what this is focused on is knowing where people stand, is knowing where they stand. And somebody could write one standing differently on these issues. But knowing where they stand, highlighting school board races and getting more attention, making people know when they can participate and how they can get involved in those things. But here's the good news. There's other people that have the spirit of a teacher that want to provide direct education for school board members, both running and then even based on the timing of when their things are coming out from the state. So when the report card comes out, for example, and I'm a school board member that maybe has only been on the school board for 2 years, to make sure that I really understand how that applies and how I can use that and how different timing cycles impact that. So that's where I was going in answering your question, is I think that you'll find at that website, ultimately, it's just started today, but at that, whatever it was, PUKITA for Senate 2022/education, that there'll be a bunch of links to different resources for both this stuff and for educational materials, not just for school board members getting elected or getting, how to get on the ballot, but once they are school board members, helping them to better understand some of the decision points that will confront them and the timetables of them.
Thank you. Ms. Board Member Miller?
Thank you, Chair McGuire. Thank you, Mr. Hill, for coming.
Hicks.
I do want to commend you. I ran for local school board, was on a local school board for 8 years because I wanted to help. I saw things that I thought needed changed. I do want to, looking at the website that you do have, just for clarification purposes, many school districts require a lot more than 25 signatures to get on the ballot. Come from an urban district, it's 300. So just clarification, you might want to correct that on your website if you're looking outside of smaller districts. There are, I believe the Secretary of State, I guess I should be doing this, shouldn't I? The Secretary of State and also the Ohio School Board Association have information for potential candidates to find out, what's involved and how to run for a school board. So some more information for you. I commend you because I think it's so very important. Most citizens do not know who's on their local school board. I have to guess most citizens don't know who's on this school board. So thank you.
I appreciate the comments, and you're absolutely right. And I obviously understand people in Ohio, a lot of citizens don't understand that there's the standard 5 board members, and then large districts, for example, have different rules, different numbers of board members, et cetera. So it's a point well taken. And I have already identified that there are some excellent, I can't remember the website, and I can't remember if it was there at this point, but there's a couple of great websites that already different organizations have that have information on how to run and how to get involved in the process. What's to the point that Mr. Hagan made earlier is, boy, school boards are so important to the future of our state and our country, but they are so under the radar in terms of people knowing about it, knowing where their board members stand. And I'm not making a policy statement on are they conservative or liberal, but it's just knowing who they are and how do they stand, when to go to the meeting, what they do, what impact they have. So it's a point well taken. And it's day, not even one, it's minute one of that, having some materials there. And if anybody has ideas, whether they're conservative, neutral, moderate, liberal, whatever they are, materials that should be linked or be available or highlight them, send them to me at chris@hickspub.com, and I'll make sure. It's not meant to be a partisan thing. It's meant to be people aware of these things. Obviously, the contract I read is very conservative, but the website is meant to highlight resources anybody can use.
Board Member Manchester has a question.
Oh, it went out.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And I looked at your a copy of your testimony that we have in our board books, and I was hoping to see items 9 and 10 on the written testimony that we see, and I don't. And I'm just suggesting to you that we do want to hear what 9 and 10 are, and so I would suggest that you maybe email those, or is that included on the website?
I can provide the person that I can't remember the name that got the testimony, very capably got the testimony. By the way, as an education group, I apologize for all the typing and grammatical errors in my testimony. But that Friday deadline, about 4 o'clock on Friday, I saw whoa, the deadline is, or on Sunday, the deadline's 5 o'clock on Sunday. So I did that very quickly. But I can send back to them the actual contract, and then that website that was linked in there, it has the actual contract on there as well.
Because we do want to hear that.
Of all 10 points,
and,
yeah.
and we definitely allow written testimony on any subject. So I just wanted to make that clear.
And I think it'll be a great day when this board allows both written and oral testimony with no content restrictions of protected speech. That is a blatant First Amendment issue, to have content restrictions. You can have content neutral restrictions like time, place, and manner, but for anybody in Ohio to have restrictions based on the content that somebody wants to bring up when it's not fighting words or something that's protected is absolutely an offense to the ideals of education, and it's actually an offense to the citizens of Ohio.
But as I said, we do allow written testimony on that. So
That's unfortunately, there's a reason why the First Amendment of our Constitution specifically talks about redressing grievances. Notice how it doesn't say to utter praise or to say what they want me to say, because any governmental body will let that happen. It's that redressing of grievances that is protected speech, verbal, written, billboard, however it may be. And I just hope that that rule that restricts free expression on a non-content neutral basis gets gone, and gets gone soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Manchester. Mr. Dakin.
Thank you, Chair McGuire. Just simply want to thank you for highlighting the importance of local school board members in elections. My brother was a local school board member for 16 years. I work with school boards in my capacity as a superintendent for over a decade. The the way that we get things done at the local level is through those elected officials. They are so important for the governance of our school systems. And to your earlier point, often the public really don't know who their local school board members are. And in some cases, it's very difficult to get people to run. I mean, it's a very difficult job in some cases, thankless in many cases. But to me, it's the highest of public calling, to serve your local community in that way. So thank you for highlighting the importance of it.
Thank you. And I think that not only running, but once people are on school boards, if the citizens aren't engaging them, other than, say, when the parents get mad about something and all show up at the school board meeting, that constant engagement and feedback is very important. So I think I want to highlight both people getting involved, but also knowing who their board members are and engaging them so that they are plugged in with the community, the whole community that is funding those schools and hoping for a great outcome to come from them.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks, and we look forward to receiving your written testimony on the 8-point plan. Oversight. So please forgive me, Ms. Fessler.
Yes.
I've acknowledged you, Ms. Fessler, and then we'll get Ms. Kilgore. Thank you.
You saw me push that button. Mr. Hicks, thank you for your testimony. I appreciate your involvement in encouraging people to become more aware of the duties and the responsibilities and the impact a school board member can and should have in the community in which they reside or elsewhere. What I'd like to transition to is to say that I think you perhaps mistakenly perceived some level of opposition from our acting chair. And I would like to say that I'm probably taxing the chair's patience more than anybody else in the room. But I can say for sure that all of us, whether we be liberal, in the middle, or ultra-conservative, we all hold her in the highest esteem. She is fair, she is kind, she is patient. I should hope to be more like her. And I'm sorry that you don't know the Charlotte that we know, or should have called you by your name, ma'am, that you didn't know Mrs. McGuire in the way that we do, because if you did, you too would hold her in very high esteem.
Well, I apologize to Mrs. McGuire or Charlotte, and I apologize for reacting to that term, inappropriate or not appropriate for here. So I might have overtook that term, but it is a word that came out of your mouth, and I apologize for that, and I thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Member Fessler. Member Kilgore.
Thank you, Chair McGuire. I just wanted to thank you for coming. Your school district is shared between me and Mr. Shea. I have less than 1% in my district.
What?
So I felt compelled to speak to you, and I really appreciate the fact that you came in really emphasizing the need for people to understand the current climate in their districts, what differentiates candidates, and to be a well-informed constituency. I think therein lies the burden right there. And while we debate a lot of educational items, the real work goes on locally, and that's where the grassroots, that's where the intellectual level of intellectual participation needs to take place. And I appreciate the drive that you took this morning to make the comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you, Board Member Kilgore. Board Member Shea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Hicks, for being here. I thought I represented 100% of the district. I didn't realize it was 99. So. But given that it's 99, I just wanted to say thank you as well, and to share. You know, when I was collecting signatures to be on the board, it was a tough time to get them, and ended up having to resort to go door to door. There weren't too many events. It was very difficult, and nothing was more discouraging to me than when folks would say, "What's that? What are you running for?" State Board of Education, and they would say, "State what?" They didn't even know that it existed, and many others would say, and to Mr. Hicks's point, they would say, "Oh, my kids are out of the school," or I don't have kids," as if they don't have any interest in what's going on in society and what's going on with someone else's kids, and really they're all of our kids. So I want to commend you and thank you again for being here, and I echo many others' comments as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Shea. Thank you, Mr. Hicks, for coming. And this concludes our testimony on non-voting items.